Hello and thank you for tuning in. My name is Les Ross. I am a town planning consultant and I'm acting for a developer who's bringing forward a project called a battery energy storage scheme on a site near Limavady. In a moment I'm going to tell you all about the project, where it is and what exactly is proposed on the site. But to begin, I just want to tell you why we're putting this video online. This is part of a public consultation exercise. This happens before the planning application is actually launched, and what we aim to do is inform you about the project and also to get feedback from you. So if at the end of this video I'll tell you a bit about how to get in contact with us. Any feedback you provide will be used as we finalise our design. So most of you watching the video will be local people. You will have received a letter from us informing you about the scheme, or you'll have seen the advertisement in the local press. Some others will just be interested, you'll have stumbled across this, or you'll be interested in this type of project. In any case, we really want to hear from you to get feedback from a wide range of people. So thank you for tuning in. It's important that you realise when the planning application is lodged, that's the time to get in contact with the local planning office to tell them your views. The planning office will then process the application and the council will make the final decision. So to begin, let me show you where the site is. This image shows the Limavady countryside on the south of the town towards Dungiven. I've indicated the location of the town centre at the top of the image, and the urban area is fairly obvious on the aerial image. The site is marked with a yellow dot at the bottom of the screen there. So the site's in the countryside, about a mile from the edge of the town. If we zoom in a little, this plan shows the site outlined red. So the site's on the Ballyvellan Road, close to its crossroads with the Edenmore Road and beside the existing NIE substation. Zooming in a little closer, this is an aerial image of the immediate surrounding area. Again, I've marked the site, outlined the site with red, and the NIE substation is really obvious here. It's a flat compound containing lots of electrical kit. You can see a few houses around the site, particularly to the north of the crossroads beside the hall. This area can be said to be above Limavady, but the land here is fairly flat. The site itself sits in a slight depression in the local landscape and it's well surrounded by established hedges. This next image shows the proposed site layout. Basically, the scheme is a compound for pieces of electrical kit. The proposed compound is a flat yard of stone surrounded by security fencing and also surrounded by a raised earth bund and new hedging to help screen views of the compound. And as you can see there, access is taken directly off the road. In a moment I'll tell you more about what the various rectangles and colours on the plan represent, but first it's important to understand why the battery storage facility is needed and why this site has been chosen. This is an extract of a map produced by the Northern Ireland Electricity Operators website from Sony's website. It shows how the electricity grid is laid out across the country. The whole system is based on a small number of large fossil fuel power stations. There are high voltage power lines streaming out from each of these stations. Those high voltage lines travel to a series of substations distributed around Northern Ireland, where the voltages are stepped down to the type of 3-phase and single-phase electricity lines that serve the homes and businesses. And these lines spread right out to the remote parts of the countryside. As you probably know, we're moving rapidly to replace fossil fuel power stations with renewable energy generators, mainly large-scale wind and solar farms, which are often found in those remote areas at the end of the established grid network, particularly to the north and the west of the province. Now, this creates an obvious problem because the grid was built the other way around. Another important issue is the fact that wind and solar energy is not available all the time. It's intermittent, and energy can't be produced when it's not windy or sunny. This means that large-scale energy storage is necessary. The grid operator needs to make fairly radical changes to the system to allow green energy to replace the old power stations. And part of the solution is to build big batteries on the grid. And there are two places where this is feasible. One at existing NIE transformer stations where the voltages are stepped, or 2, at large-scale wind farms or solar parks. In the last few years, 2 large battery energy storage systems have been built in Northern Ireland, and I've worked on both of those at sites immediately beside large transformer stations at Tandragee and Tamnamore. These systems are now operational, and they're already helping to stabilise the load on the grid. Effectively, they are part of the modernisation of the grid to make it more resilient, to help us generate our own power rather than importing oil, coal and gas, to help us meet our international targets and obligations in terms of combating climate change, and to make sure we keep the lights on and provide efficient, affordable electricity for businesses and for the whole community. In other words, battery storage is an essential part of the solution to modernising our grid. The substation in Limavady is an important part of the grid, and this is where high voltage electricity is stepped down. If you've been near the site in spring/summer 2021, you'll probably have noticed the ongoing work of upgrading that substation. The capacity here is being doubled to handle the significant development of new wind energy schemes in the northwest. So in grid terms, Limavady is an excellent place for a battery energy storage system. The battery facility needs to be as close as possible to the substation, so we looked at various options. The site itself is ideal because of the road frontage, the good sense of integration provided by the natural landform and the vegetation, the lack of overhead cables on this particular frontage of the site, and the separation from local houses to the north. Overall, it's an excellent site. We have a team of people working on the project, including technical advisors on the electricity infrastructure and health and safety issues, an ecology expert considering plants and animals, an acoustic expert to make sure no local residents would be disturbed by the scheme, and a drainage engineer. Essentially, as shown by the plan here, the scheme involves creating a compound within a total land area of around 2 acres. That compound would be flat, covered in stone, and then there would be a series of pieces of electricity kit across it. The compound would be surrounded by a security fence and an earth bank, which is a tall bund with hedging and vegetation, and that bund helps to screen the site. So the construction process will begin by stripping back the topsoil and using it to create the bund, and that means that no material needs to be moved off the site. Stones will be brought in and be laid to create the works area, and then the kit will be brought in and built on the site. The whole process would happen within the site itself, and it would take about 6 months to complete. And it's reasonable to characterise it as an extension of the existing NIE compound, and the work would probably continue in a similar way to those recent works in the compound. So I think the best way to describe a battery energy storage system is to show you some photos of the existing schemes that I've visited. So here's a picture of one of the battery storage containers from a site in England. As you can see, it's a standard 40-foot long shipping container. It's been modified and then filled with batteries. This image shows what it looks like inside. They're simply racks of batteries, and these batteries store the excess electricity on the grid, and then they discharge it really rapidly when it's required, and that helps to balance out the grid. Here's a picture of the other side of the container. It shows the air conditioning units on the ground in the middle of the picture. You can see the ductwork connected to the top of that shipping container. These air conditioning units keep everything cool, but really they're only necessary on the warm days, so you'll appreciate that they're not always necessary in the Northern Irish environment. Another element of the system are the inverters, and here is a photo of a typical row of inverters. Again, these are in modified 40-foot shipping containers, and there would be a row of these within the site. Within the site there are other pieces of kit to move the electricity back and forth from the grid. This is an example of some heavy-duty kit that's fairly typical in these types of sites. It's just worth noting though that the scheme will not involve the creation of any overhead cables beyond the site itself. The battery storage site will be connected directly to the existing NIE substation via underground cabling. There are also 2 control rooms within the site, and this is where the system is managed. As illustrated in the photographs, these are just buildings, standard small scale buildings. So the whole site is surrounded by palisade fencing for security. And this picture here shows a site in England shortly after it was completed. In this example, there's no earth bunding, but in Limavady, the fencing and the compound would be well hidden behind an earth bund, and you have hedging there as well to help everything to integrate into the locality. So let's return to the layout. Hopefully the photos I've shown you give you a better idea of what all the rectangles on this plan represent. In the most basic terms, the scheme is a compound full of shipping containers, which in turn are full of batteries and other bits of electrical kit. These are fairly benign developments, and once the scheme is built, there's very little activity on the site, just engineers checking periodically and doing maintenance, similar to the existing NIE substation. So hopefully now you know more about battery energy storage systems, you know where the site is, and you know what's being proposed. As I said at the start of the video, we'll be very pleased to hear from you. So here is our telephone number. Give us a call any time during working hours and someone will be available to have a chat with you about the scheme. Or you can write to us, or finally, if you wish, send us an email and we'll get in contact with you. So it just remains for me to say once again, thank you very much for tuning in and get in contact anytime. Thank you very much. Bye.